Thanks for coming back to the table. We're talking to funny fashion guru, syndicated radio personality, and co-host on the Ricky Smiley Morning Show, Gary with the T. And you've always been very open about the years you spent fighting colon cancer. But I don't know that as many people know that you also have a bipolar disorder diagnosis.
Yeah.
That you also talk about.
Oh, yeah. You know, it happened when I was a senior in high school. I had an episode, well, at least I'll never forget, I know this is short, but I went to the cafeteria and I just was craving a honey bun.
Okay.
And I craved the honey bun and it wasn't supposed to happen. But nevertheless, the nurse, they got my parents' number, they called my parents and told them that I was acting kind of irate. Mm-hmm. So my parents came, they picked me up from school, and they brought me to the doctor. Well, the first doctor diagnosed said that I had hypoglycemia.
Okay.
You know, because that was some of the, the stuff ways I was acting, with the irate.
Jittery,
So they diagnosed hypoglycemia. So my mama would cook me a good breakfast and blah, 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 and stuff like that. Then it still kind of happened, and the other doctors prescribed that I needed glasses.
What?
He said, so girl, I know it happened, but they said I needed glasses.
Took a minute to narrow this down.
Yeah, because they didn't know. So that happened. So that was my senior year. So I moved to Houston after I graduated from high school, and I had another episode. Well, at that time, my friends, they hadn't gotten in touch with me for a couple of days. So they went to my apartment manager and they asked, could they get in? So eventually, she let them in because they hadn't heard from me. Well, they found me balled up in a blanket in the corner in my apartment.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, honey, like it was yesterday. So they had me taken to the hospital. So they took me to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, honey, I didn't know what was going on. But before you know it, I woke up, honey, and I was on the psych floor.
So what? Wow.
Yeah, so I was on the psych floor. So I was in the hospital for like a week. My parents came because they lived in Port Arthur and I was in Houston. So my parents came, to see about me, what was going on, and that's when I was diagnosed with, they didn't call it bipolar, they called it hypoglycemia. Not hypoglycemia, manic depression.
Manic depression.
They called it manic depression.
Right. So was that something, when they articulated it that way, did you recognize, I am anxious, I am depressed? Or did it feel like that's what it was?
I didn't know. It didn't.
Because we're talking, in your 20s, so we're talking a couple of decades ago.
So I was
when we were talking about mental health in these same ways.
Exactly, you were. And I was 17, 18.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what it was. And, hell, I didn't thought I was depressed or whatever, but what it was the chemical imbalance. It's called the chemical imbalance.
Right.
I have my highs and lows and whatever. So they put me on lithium. Well, no, they didn't. They didn't put me on lithium. They put me on Cogentin, Escalate, and Narvane. I was on 3 different medicines. So when they released me home to go home with my parents, we got home and we talked, me and my parents. I never forget, we had...
Was this the first time you'd ever been I have to believe, it's the first time you've been on any type of medications this, right? How did you notice a difference? Did it regulate?
Yeah, well, that's just so we got home and later that night, we all went to bed. So, honey, I went to bed and I woke up screaming. I told my parents, I ran upstairs and told my parents that the monsters were chopping me in the brain.
Oh, my goodness.
Because I had so many different, so my parents called the doctor and they brought me back to the hospital. So they put me in a hospital in Houston, Charter, I call the name of it, and I stayed there for 3 months.
Oh, wow.
I stayed in the hospital for 3 months, and then that's when they regulated.
And so you have spent the rest of your adult life managing this with medication, meditation?
I still take lithium. I've been taking lithium for over 30 years. I take it every day.
I don't want to, and thank you for being so open about that, because I feel like that's an opportunity, especially for the men watching, to recognize this is something to talk about and to talk about the symptoms, and even when the treatment isn't working right.
Yeah.
But I don't want to miss the colon cancer advocacy that you do as well. And you don't do it in a formal setting, so to speak. No. But you use your platform to talk about prostate exams and why they're so important. Yeah. This was several years journey for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny though. I have a friend that went through the prostate part, but I went through the colon. I went through the colon cancer. So the colon, and it's funny. I mean, like I was telling you, producer, I don't really even think about it, or what have you. I mean, I went through it. I went to work every day. After I was diagnosed, my mother came down and I was diagnosed with colon cancer. The doctor told us, and honey, immediately we called the doctor. We got to the doctor's office before he got there to set up, to do the surgery.
Yeah, I know, and I want to pause you here, and I want to ask you to answer as delicately as you can, but what sent you to the doctor? What was going wrong that made you feel like something wasn't right?
I felt a bump.
Ah, okay.
You know.
Understood.
But it had been there for years, but it was, it didn't bother me or whatever. Eventually, I just said, well, let me check this out.
Oh, good.
You know,
so just really
yeah.
trusting, recognizing something didn't seem right and asking a doctor to check it out.
Exactly.
Cool.
But I still often wonder, I'm like, that was colon cancer, but it was colon cancer. They said it was colon cancer. So, we went through the process. I had the surgery, and I went through it, temporary colostomy. And,
wow.
And went through the situation. And like I said, I don't really think about it. After I went through the surgery and all that stuff, I had chemo. I had to wear a chemo fanny pack because I went to work every day. I went to radiation every day after I got off from work. When I would get to the hospital, I would ask I said, who you cooking today? Because that radiation
that's how it feels.
They cook you. So, but I mean, but I endured it. And like I said, I went to work every single day, because I didn't want to stay at home and not do nothing.
Yeah.
And sit there and wallow in, sorrow.
Right.
So.
You just as well be out there working and working through
really
it and making us laugh along the way.
Yeah,
that was such a incredible experience to watch. We're going to take a break, but I need you to listen. You can clearly see Gary loves fashion. In fact, he loves it so much. His couleur of the day segment is one of the most, I tried to pick every color I could find just because I knew I could nail it with one of these in this shirt. Conversation continues about health and wellness and fashion and fun when we return. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I really want to thank you for season 3 of Portia. It's because of loyal viewers like you that we keep getting to share this daily dose of positivity all across the country. So just a reminder, I still need you to like, comment, and subscribe. And go ahead and tell your friends. You can catch us now in Orlando, in San Francisco, in Atlanta, and all across the country on Fox Soul. Tell your friends. We'll see you soon on Portia.